Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to this special edition of the RCB Radio Sports Show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. And a special focus now, we look at Irish performing athletes who have performed heroics both here in the country and obviously overseas as well. And one of my guests this evening, I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Laoise Quinn from Castletroy in County Limerick. Laoise made national headlines only in September, which she achieved, became a world champion, junior world champion in the International Powerlifting Federation World Championships out in Halmstad in sort of Sweden. So a remarkable feat for an 18-year-old who only started lifting and taking an interest in gym work only 2 years ago when she was 16. So become world champion at an international stage. Some of Laoise's achievements, her bench was 77.5, her deadlift was 172.5, her squat was 147.5, and she claimed gold medal in the squat and also gold medal overall in the lifting for the outstanding total of 380 kg. And Laoise, I know the camera mightn't do us justice there in terms of that, but in terms of those sort of accomplishments, I look at you there and I say to yourself, well, Laoise, you mustn't be over 60, 70 kg, are you, yourself?
No, I'm only 57, so I have to be under 57 for my competitions. There's a certain weight criteria that I have to fit under. So okay. I'm 56 at the moment.
Okay. And Laoise, in terms of growing up, were you always sporting? Were you always ambitious? Did you also always play an awful lot of sports? When did sort of fascination and craze come from in terms of the gym? Was it sort of pre-COVID? Was it sort of something you took up as a pastime or a hobby? Or what got you into the idea of powerlifting and strength competitions?
I was playing hockey with a club through secondary school, and I started going to the gym to do cardio and get fitter for hockey. And then I realized that I actually really liked the gym, and I liked how flexible it was for me, especially in school. I could go at any time I wanted to of the day, and I could train away by myself, so I wasn't waiting for a team to train or anything. So I just found it really suited me, and I just decided to keep that going instead. I actually preferred it a lot more than the hockey. So I ended up giving up the hockey to focus on the weights, and then I got bored of just training by myself and like mindlessly training for the weights, and I decided I want to get competitive. So that's where I found powerlifting, and that started when I was weight training when I was 14. So then I picked up powerlifting when I was around 16.
And powerlifting, was there a club in Limerick? Is there much of a background? Is there, especially for teenagers and teenage girls, in terms of Limerick, was there a tradition or coaching? Was it easy to find for you and your parents?
So I actually found powerlifting through a friend that I was training with in the gym. He was in the same year as me, and I just saw him do it, and I was like, oh, that looks fun, so I'm going to give that a go. So I went into the same gym that he was training in town. It's called City Gym Limerick. Okay. So that's a powerlifting club in Limerick City, and it was kind of a sport that I'd never even heard of before I went into City Gym. And then when I was in there, I kind of realized like how big it actually is, and there was a lot more girls training in there. And even since I started, there's been a lot more, particularly younger people starting and picking it up. So there's a good few teenagers training away in there now. There's a few of us going to Euros now in 2 weeks as well. So.
And in terms of powerlifting in Ireland, especially for teenage girls and probably teenage boys, in terms of competitions, is there Munsters, is there provincials, is there nationals in terms of that? How did you hear about, and obviously is it self-funding? Do you have to raise an awful lot of money to compete in these sort of events, or is it all club funded or club membership?
So it's all self-funded. So anytime we travel, like when I went to Sweden for Worlds, I funded it myself. And for competitions that we do within Ireland, it's all self-funded as well. So it can be an expensive hobby. You really have to love it to keep it going. But yeah. And then in the competitions there's a few different ones. The big one in Ireland would be Nationals. That's in February, and you have to qualify for that. You can qualify it through provincials, so that's like Munster competitions. And then we also have junior nationals where you can qualify. So that would be for people under 23 who want to qualify for nationals.
And Lisa, in terms of representing your country and obviously Ireland as such, how did you come about in terms of getting noticed by Ireland? Were the Irish selection team, were they based in Munster, or was it up in Dublin or further up the East Coast? And as a teenager, how did you sort of make your ways? Did you have to go to specific sort of trainings, or obviously within the COVID sort of climate as well? How did that sort of work out? Were you on the international stage even from a young age?
So it was actually my first international competition in September. I was meant to go to the Worlds. It was like just when COVID hit. I was planning to go to Worlds, but obviously it got cancelled because of COVID. I did qualify for Worlds through competitions that I had done in Ireland. So I basically made like the Irish team by competing within Ireland. But then since there was all the competitions in Ireland were cancelled due to COVID, other people could qualify through a team training day in up in Dublin, where the head coach would be.
Okay. And Leisha, you mentioned going to Sweden and Halmstad. Was that your sort of first tournament, first powerlifting competition ever abroad? Was it the first time stepping out of Ireland representing your country?
Yeah, it was my first time traveling abroad for a competition. The furthest I've gone for a competition was in Dublin. So it was definitely a crazy experience. So yeah, it was really good though.
And Leisha, in terms of the competition, the international powerlifting competition we held in Hampstead, tell us what was the routine? Was it over a 2 week period, over a 1 week period? Were you based in a sort of facility? Were you in terms of training? You mentioned there it was self sort of funded, so I imagine it took an awful lot of raising and donations and obviously fundraising to funds not only for your accommodation but for your training and probably your team that's behind you. I imagine your coaches and probably one or two of your parents went as well.
Yeah, so there was a lot of us from the Irish team over there. There was God, I don't know the exact number of us, but there was a good lot of us traveling over, and it was over 2 weeks. But like my competition, I was only on for a few hours, and then the next day another category would be on. So I was only competing myself for 1 day, but the whole thing was spread out over 2 weeks. So yeah.
And Leisha, in terms of the competition itself, was there many different sort of countries within Europe and the world there? Were you competing in your category maybe against 20 different girls?
Yeah, so even with COVID, nearly every country was able to make it. The US, they weren't able to, but some of them were able to compete under the US Virginia Islands. So they managed to get a few American lifters over to Worlds as well. But if it weren't for COVID, I'm sure we would have had a few more from America. So it was a pity that some of them couldn't come.
And Leisha, in terms of the competition structure and format in Hampstead, was there opening rounds? Was there sort of last 16 rounds where you had to make a certain mark or a certain qualifying mark to progress each time? And were girls getting knocked out as we got to the final rounds, or was it based on your 3 lifts in a particular category?
So in powerlifting, there's 3 lifts. You have your squat, bench, and deadlift. And then on a competition day, you get 3 attempts at each one. So we start off with squats. It would be, you'd open pretty light to secure a squat on the board, because if you don't get any of your squats, you don't get a total. And it's a total that you need to win. So you start off with squats, you do your first attempt, and then nearly everyone gets that, and then you go on to your second attempt, a few people might miss that, and then you go on to your third attempt. And then if you get your third attempt on your lifts, you're in a really good place, because especially when you're competing in somewhere like Worlds, there's a lot of pressure. People are like competing for placing. So if you fail a lift and you miss out on like 2.5 kilos, it may sound so small, but it makes such a difference when it gets to a total.
Yeah, and Leisha, in terms of, I saw the video there of those final lifts and your joy and exuberance after achieving your goal. Going into those final moments, did you have particular targets that you felt you could meet, or were you really pushing the boundaries in terms of your own expectations in terms of what you had previously done in training?
So I didn't expect to hit close to like my best numbers. So I'd done a competition in August here in Ireland, and I had hit a 142.5 squat, a 75 bench, and a 172 deadlift. So if I was going to add a few more kilos on, I would have been happy. But especially when you go abroad for lifting and it's a competition like Worlds where the pressure is there, a lot of people wouldn't like perform up to their best capability, and they wouldn't be hitting PBs. But I was really lucky to hit a squat PB and a bench PB. I actually wasn't expecting that at all. I was expecting to kind of hit near what I did back in August. And then with my deadlifts, it was a pity that I finished on 155, because I knew I was capable on a lot more, but I had just dropped my last two due to my grip failing. So I missed out on the world record then as well. But hopefully we can get it in at Euros instead.
Leisha, you mentioned 18 and you're already talking about world records. What was the sort of reaction in terms of finding out afterwards that you'd become a world sort of champion at your sort of category? And was it obviously the great exuberance between you and your family and loved ones, but then obviously to come home and then to hear the reaction that this had spread in terms of that? What's it been like since September coming back from Hampstead? Has your world changed a bit?
Yeah, it's been really good, because I think I would love to get more people into powerlifting, because it's a really small sport and a lot of people wouldn't hear about it until they got more involved in the weights. Like before I started it, no one in my family or like my friends have never heard of it. But I kind of want to make it a bigger sport and get more people involved in it, because I just think it's done a lot for me and I want like people to experience it as well. So I think coming back, it has definitely like spread, and like powerlifting has become a bit bigger because it is spreading like through like radio interviews and interviews with different people. And on different newspapers, it is becoming a lot popular. So I'm really happy that I'm kind of like fulfilling that goal of getting more people involved in it.
Yeah, and Leisha, in terms of powerlifting going forward, I'm not too sure, correct me if I'm wrong in this, but is it an Olympic sport? Is there a chance for you to be qualified to be an Olympian in the future?
So it's not an Olympic sport at the moment. I do know the federation that I powerlift with, so that would be the International Powerlifting Federation. They are trying hard to get it into the Olympics. So who knows, maybe the next Olympics I could be going, but hopefully if they get approved to get in there.
And I suppose, what are your goals now for 2022 going onwards in terms of powerlifting? Obviously, you mentioned a world record there. You're obviously the world champion. And I mentioned there, you mentioned Pacific weights in terms of junior. Are you going to stay at those categories, or you plan to move up?
So I'm currently a sub junior. So a sub junior would be under 19s. So I'm going to Euros. I'm actually competing Friday week over in Sweden again, near Stockholm this time. So I'm hoping to get the world record there and hopefully win. But then next year I will be in the junior category, because I will be too old for the sub juniors now. So I'm going to take my first year as a junior slow, and then hopefully the 2023 I'll be going back to Worlds and back to Euros. So Yeah.
Yeah. And Laoise, in terms of yourself personally, are you I know you went to Castletroy College there doing a bit of research. Are you on now to third level college? Are you are you currently sitting to leaving certain, or are you finished that? And how does that sort of quell into your studies in terms of going forward?
Yeah, so I'm actually in the middle of my leaving cert at the moment. So it's a bit hectic between managing school, study and training, and leaving school early for physio appointments and all that kind of sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a bit crazy, and my schedule is pretty packed, but it's just all about sacrifices. So like sacrificing nights out on the weekends so that I can catch up on study and all that. But it's going fine. I'm managing everything so far. So.
And Laoise, I was noticed from your website as well, if people want to go onto your website, you've set up a personal sort of training website. You're actually coaching people and taking on people and giving sort of lessons. Is that in terms of powerlifting or general fitness or general well-being or a general sort of health in total for young girls or maybe young teenagers, or is it geared towards everyone at every walk of life?
So yeah, I am taking on powerlifting clients and PTs at the moment. So it's kind of, the personal trainings are kind of suited to anyone. It can be anyone's goal. And then, or if people want to learn more about powerlifting, I can teach them those in the PTs. And then some of my PTs have gone on to online powerlifting coaching so that they're not going to a PT every week. They've kind of moved on now that they can do it by themselves, and I'm just helping them, giving them little points whenever they need it. I also have 2 ebooks. One is about nutrition and then the other one is about training. So if someone can't afford to come to PTs, then they can get an ebook where they can learn more about powerlifting and see examples of like powerlifting programs. So it's a bit more of a cheaper option, especially for students and stuff as well. I know people can't afford to be paying for PTs.
Well, Laoise, it's been great talking to you. It's a fantastic sort of story in terms of this current climate where everyone is probably finding activities and hobbies to do, to say that you've come out with being a world champion and you're pursuing a world record at only 18. I do hope for you that in time it does become an Olympic sport and you do get a chance to be an Olympian. But for the moment, obviously, you can only keep doing what you're doing, and you seem to be a trailblazer for your sport. Anyway, Laoise Quinn, an absolute pleasure. And hopefully, please God, we can speak to you in the near future, and we can speak to you as a world record holder as well, not only as a world champion. Laoise, thanks a million.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you.